C-47 from Florida to North Carolina and back. One of the most memorable airplane trips I ever did was on a C-47 from Florida to North Carolina and back. When I was stationed at Orlando Air Force Base in the 1950s, we did not have a flight line, but we did have a few C-47s and C-45s. The Air Force parked them at the Orlando Airport, now known as the Executive Airport, just off Colonial Drive. In the 1950s, we had officers who were assigned as accounting officers and supply officers, but remained on flying status. To receive flight pay, they had to have so many flying hours per month, so that's why we had a few airplanes. Most of the time, they tried to have a purpose for the flights, so they used them to transport small amounts of cargo and sometimes special missions. Those airplanes always had space available, so on the weekends I would place my name on a list and hop a ride to wherever the airplane was going as long as it was returning before time to go to work on Monday morning. The Air Force pilots were glad to take you along on the trip just to have someone to talk to other than the co-pilot. One weekend, a C-47 was going to North Carolina to pick up an Air Force band. I have racked my brain trying to remember where in North Carolina we landed, but I cannot retrieve it. Anyway, the guy working in base operations told me I was okay for the C-47 trip to North Carolina. The C-47 had a small jump seat between the pilot and co-pilot, and that's where I rode. I don't know if it is required today, but we all wore parachutes, and for some odd reason, I had the strongest desire to jump out of that airplane to see what it was like. The pilots knew me, so it was an enjoyable trip, not being a stranger. The airplane did not have any crew members other than the two officers, so I was listed as part of the crew. The C-47 is not a pressurized airplane, so we flew at low altitude to North Carolina and back. On the way back, most of the Air Force band were white-knuckle passengers, so when we started flying in and around rainstorms, they were, to use some more slang, blue under the gills. Sitting in the jump seat in the C-47, I had a perfect view of all the weather and clouds we flew through. I probably asked 100 questions, and the pilots tried to answer each one. I had the opportunity to salute each of those guys during my stay in Orlando. On this flight, they told me to keep it informal, which I did.